So there's a proper way to remove the nitrile gloves, or any gloves actually. So I want to be sure that everybody's familiar with this. So once you're finished with using the gloves, you pinch from one side with your dominant hand. You pinch and bring it down, roll it inside, and then with two fingers you go underneath without touching the outside. You bring it all the way around like this, and now it's inside out and it gets discarded as such. Okay, that's the proper way. The butyl nitrile gloves are similar to like those Playtex dishwashing gloves that might use, but because of butyl nitrile, they will hold up against a wide variety of different chemicals. So they're really, really good. Okay, they're very thick, and usually you're gonna wear one of those nitrile gloves underneath, and then these over. Okay. So I'm going to talk to you about the formula for infection. A lot of you didn't even know there's a formula for infection. So here it is. I equals D times V divided by H. Now what does that mean? So I is infection. Infection equals D. D is the dose. How much of that were you exposed to? Okay. V is the virulence. Okay. How strong is that contagion? Okay, how strong is it? And H is the host. How healthy are you? So let me give you a few examples. Everybody's familiar with HIV, right? Human immunodeficiency virus. So in 1 cc, in 1 milliliter of blood, say of HIV infected blood, there are about 75,000 viral particles. Now that may sound like a lot, but it really isn't. Okay? So because of that, if you have a needle stick, all right, that's a 1 in 250 chance, or a 0.004% chance of you contracting it. That's pretty low, okay, because it's not very virulent. The HIV is not very virulent, and the dose is low. So the dose and the virulence are low. So as long as you're fairly healthy, the chance of infection are kind of low. With HBV, hepatitis B virus, in 1 milliliter of blood, there are about 100 million viral particles, a lot higher, right? So with a needle stick, the chances of you contracting the disease is 60% instead of 0.004, right? That's a lot higher, 60%. How about EBV? EBV is the Ebola virus disease, and in 1 milliliter of blood there's 10 billion viral particles. Now with a needle stick, actually if you just look at it, you pretty much will get it. Okay, it is so concentrated, the dose is so high, and it's so virulent, okay, that the chances of contracting it is astronomical. It's going to be as close to 100% as you're ever going to get. So that's the formula for infection. Viruses are different from bacteria. Bacteria are living organisms that can survive inside a host or outside of the host. Okay, believe it or not, a good 90% of the bacteria is actually good for us. We have bacteria on the oils that we produce on our fingertips to help fight off a lot of the bad stuff. And so when you use an antibacterial spray or so forth, you're actually killing off some of your protection. You should use an antimicrobial or a germicidal, right? But not antibacterial. You've heard of probiotics, and if not, you should. Probiotics is something you should take every so often, because you have bacteria inside your gastrointestinal system, and that's what absorbs all liquid so that it forms, and you have some nice formed stools. When you take antibiotics, okay, you're killing off the bad bacteria and you're killing off the good bacteria in the GI system, and that's why you get one side effects is you get diarrhea. And so it's prudent for you to take some probiotics because of that. Viruses, on the other hand, are not actually living organisms. They are biochemicals. they can reproduce, but not on their own. They need a host. And so that's one of those type of biochemical elements that, like I said, alive or not, and the controversy will still be out there. But it lives mostly, it needs a host to survive. It can survive for a period of time outside of the host. So, for example, HIV in the liquid form, if you have HIV infected blood and splashes onto the table, when it dries up on the surface, it's already dead. So figure a few seconds to a minute or two. HBV has been known to remain infectious for up to 2 weeks on a dry surface. So that is a lot more virulent. That's why we're talking about 60% versus 0.004. What else? So you have that. So with viruses, you have different types: A, B, C, and D. Type A and B are the common flu, your influenzas that you get every season. Type C is a mild type of influenza, and type D usually affects only cattle. They're named by the two proteins that they're made up of, and that's the hemagglutinin, and that's from 1 to 18, and the neuraminidase. That's not easy to say. Neuraminidase, and that's from 1 to 11. So you've heard the H1N1, okay, or you could have H18 and 10. Okay, so there's different types, and they're named by those two proteins. So they have these proteins, and they have like a usually thin layer of fat around it that holds it together, and so this is why heat usually will dissolve the fat and break apart, these viruses. That's why they usually don't survive very well in the heat or in the sunlight. Okay. See what else we're going to mention. As far as statistics, okay, there are a number of websites that you can go to. Right. This one will show you that. By the way, today's date is April 25th. So around the world is showing this like 2.8 million people confirmed with COVID-19. Okay, and the United States has the majority of them with over 900,000, almost a million cases. And as far as number of deaths, you can see that in New York City is ranks fifth in the number of deaths with over 16,000. Now on this chart, I'm going to show you. This is just from March. So in March we had 33,000 positive tests and 2,700 deaths. So that was just in March. We're in the 25th of April, okay, and we're at 16,646. That's in New York City. So when you see this curve, right, it shows you that the number of cases has increased dramatically. And as far as the number of cases, all these stats are actually quite skewed. That's because we haven't tested everybody. Okay, and even if you test someone and then they become exposed, or they became exposed a couple days prior, it won't show up positive on the test. And even these tests, you get some false positives, some false negatives. So the number that you see on the total confirmed, that doesn't mean that that's the only number of confirmed. Not everybody been tested. That's number one. Number two, and by the way, a lot of this information that I'm giving, I'm the emergency manager at a hospital, and I'm actually the one that enters this data that you see on the news every day. I enter it for my hospital. So all the hospitals have the site that they're supposed to enter this data every single day about how many number of cases they have, how many cases are positive, how many are PUIs, person under investigation. That means that they don't know they're positive yet, but they have the signs and symptoms of it. How many deaths of those that are known to be positive, and so on and so forth. How many are on ventilators, intubated, and so on. Well, we don't report anyone that is a PUI, person under interest, that expired. They're under interest, but if they haven't been tested or we didn't get the test back, those aren't reported. When EMS responds to these calls, like every fourth-fifth call as a cardiac arrest. They may have had the signs and symptoms and all that, but if they weren't tested, they don't know they're positive, they don't get counted in the mix. So that number that you see as far as the number of deaths is actually considerably higher. Okay. Also, there's a number of hospitals that don't report, or they don't get to report in time. I could go into more detail about that, but again, just believe that there are a number of hospitals that, because of the deadlines that are involved, with reporting and the number of questions and things that you have to get from all these various different departments, from infection control, from respiratory, from materials management, from pharmacies and so forth. Because of that, some hospitals don't get to report. So those numbers that you see is only X number of hospitals, not all the reports. And so these numbers are skewed. So I will tell you straight out, they're much, much higher than what you see on the news. Okay. As far as COVID-19, COVID-19 has what's called the S protein, which makes it highly communicable from person to person. Many people aren't aware of this, but we've been planning for a massive pandemic since 2008. That's this bird flu that's affected the Middle East, and that one has a 61% mortality rate. More than half of the people that are infected die from that virus. So since 2008, the OCME, Office of Chief Medical Examiner, has been working on plans along with emergency managers and hospitals. And because of that, they distributed 100 body bags to every hospital. Those are those bright red, orange body bags that you might see in some of the pictures. And we had plans for the use of the reefers. Those are the refrigerated units, those tractor trailers, refrigerated units. They have both diesel and electric. And initially, these trailers that are most of them 53 feet long would hold 44 decedents, 22 on one side, 22 on the other side. So you place the body down on the ground, on the floor, and the head goes on the chest of the other one before them, and so on along the length. When COVID-19 hit and we had a massive number of deaths in a short period of time, they ran out of trailers. In fact, they had to get some trailers from Maryland because they didn't have as many cases. And then they realized, hey, you know what? We can maximize this by building some shelves. So they gave us instructions on building shelves inside the trailers. Here's the problem. We have bodies inside these trailers already. How are you going to build shelving inside a trailer when you have bodies in there? So what they did was that those that had the trailers without the shelving got grandfathered into getting those trailers out, and then the new trailers that we got in already had shelving in it, and they hold between 75 to 100 decedents. It's two layers of shelving, so you have 3 rows that you can put bodies in on the left side and the right side. At our facility, what we did was we numbered them. So if somebody says looking for Joe Schmo, we already have in a chart. Joe Schmo is on left side, number 18. Okay, so you can go right to that shelf and retrieve that person. If we have people that are in these trailers for a good 20 to 30 days, then we do the paperwork. There's a whole lot of paperwork involved. And then the Office of Chief Medical Examiner will send a trailer and will transfer those patients over and take those in. There's a staging area by the 39th Street Pier for all these trailers and decedents. Then if they get claimed, funeral parlors can go there to claim them. If they're not claimed, then they're brought to an island where they're burying them at in the meantime. So this is what's happening, and it's because we have such a large number of people dying in a short period of time. We are seeing, at least from the data that I'm entering, a lot of African Americans. And one thing that I haven't seen, heard, or mentioned on the news much, it like hits you in the face. What I see a lot of is the patients have a history of diabetes and hypertension. It's like diabetes, hypertension, diabetes. So many of them that it's quite evident that those two are a big factor on the people that are expiring. So I wanted to mention that. Um, like I said, I already showed you the chart of here. Hopefully, this will pass sometime soon, but not realistically. What I do want to mention is that you see some states are opening up their restrictions now. We have the shelter in place. The non-essentials, stay home, and that has flattened the curve. So we saw before how the curve goes up, and now it's flattened the curve. But what people are not realizing is that that curve is up there. All right, so you still have quite a number of deaths. You still have quite a number of people being affected. Quite a number of people on in the intensive care units on ventilators. Right, so it's still a high number. The reason that it's flattened out is because we're minimizing the number of people that are getting exposed. So now when we're going to start opening this up again, like they did in Florida and Georgia, you're going to see a lot more people become exposed, and it's going to go right back up again. At some point, either everybody's going to get exposed, or they will come up with a definitive treatment or vaccine so that we can protect ourselves or get treated for it, and then until this blows over. But until then, this is going to continue. So that's why I'm guessing, we're talking about July, August, September. And there's also the theory about the second wave. The issue with that is that some of these viruses, many of these viruses also tend to mutate. So what treatments and vaccines that come up, for those may not work later on. This is why every year we have the seasonal flu, influenza as a virus. Otherwise, they would come with one treatment or one vaccine, and that'd be it. We never have it again. But that's not the case. Every year we have different viruses, and a lot of them are H1N1s, but they have different variations to them. The problem with this particular virus, the COVID-19, is that it's novel, it's new. So even though we know about coronaviruses, and it's called corona because of its round shape and it looks like a crown, we know about coronaviruses in general, but this particular virus we didn't know much about. We didn't know how it's communicable. So at first they said, okay, it's airborne. So everybody had to wear respirators. We ran out of respirators. Then they said, okay, maybe it's not airborne, maybe it's droplet. Just wear a surgical or face mask. Now they're saying, okay, it is more airborne, or it can remain in the air for a good 3 hours. So if somebody coughs or sneezes in the room, and an hour later you walk into that room unprotected, you could become infected. So this is the problem. This is where we're at, and that's why everybody's supposed to be wearing masks to protect others from what they're exhaling or coughing or sneezing or spitting or when they're talking, and for those that are infected, to prevent that from going out, and to protect others. This is going to go on for a while, and just about every 100 years we have a massive pandemic. The last one was in 1918 and 19. We had 2 rounds with that one. In the first round, there was about 3 million people that died. And in the second round, several months later, almost a year later, it was about 50 million, 25 to 50 million. They didn't have an exact count, that died. So this is the problem that we're faced with. Best we could do is learn as much as we can, protect yourself as you can, and try and stay as healthy as you can. All right, the vitamin C's, the zinc, the aspirins, hot tea at night, because if you get if you're exposed to that virus and embeds into the back of the throat, at least with that heat, can help dissolve it and break it apart to help prevent that infection. It does travel down to the respiratory tract, and so it causes overproduction of mucus, which then gives you pneumonia and the complications. It's also said to attach to the hemoglobin, so it fights for the oxygen molecules, and so you're kind of suffocating at a cellular level. So we're still learning more about this. There's still a lot more to learn about it, but in the meantime, just do what you can, and I hope this video will help to give you more information about the PPEs and about viruses and so forth, and about the chances of infection. Okay, good luck out there.